Hi, I'm Kyle, and I'm here with Camelia on the Secure UX team. And we put together this epic of steps we could take for iterations to improve our security and license check feature. It's separated in two different areas. And so accountability is for the user that is responsible for setting up the security gate or license check. And then responsible is for the developer who has to comply with it, or maybe in a merge request and has to, in a merge request where the vulnerability check is being applied because certain criteria has been found. And just a quick background is vulnerability check will disallow a merge request when critical, high, or unknown vulnerabilities have been detected, even if they've been dismissed. And license check is a way to allow an approval group for licenses that are deemed denied with the policy. So actually just stop sharing my screen and pass it to Camelia to do a quick demonstration of that check, of how to configure this check.
Yeah, this is a page how we currently allow user to do edit their approval rules for security, and this is one already exists. And if I add a new one, which is license check, that user need to create a new one and put exactly the name license check and with no misspelling or anything else. And they need to put approval rule as 1 to enable it. If it's 0, it's disabled. And they need to add at least one user there and to let it work. So now I add it, and it looks like a normal rules, but it's approval rules. There currently no indication to tell you that this is special, and I can edit it, but you can see that I cannot edit the name anymore. And you can only add approvers and change its enable disabled. If I change it to 0, that is disabled, and it just button becomes a little bit gray, but you can still click on it and change it back to 1. So there are a lot of issues around this setup process that we can improve. And I think I'm just handing it over back to Cal to go over the issues that I think can help user improve this experience.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, like Camelia just showed us, the rules are not immediately visible in the approval group on the user interface. We do have a UX debt issue actually, where in the original implementation, it was showing, but we were unable to do that. And this issue is focused on showing the vulnerability check and license check at all times in the merge request approver group area. So this is for visibility of the groups and discoverability. Now, the good thing is once this issue is taken care of, this will help us out with the next following recommended issues 4 and 5. And for 4, this is showing the approval groups here in the configuration page. And this is important because a prerequisite for vulnerability check, for example, to be on or to be able to be turned on is some of the scanners need to be turned on, at least one of them. For example, SAS needs to be turned on for the vulnerability check to really matter. So having it all on the same page helps with that prerequisite, and even not for the person accountable for the settings, it's helpful for developers just to see how projects are set up in terms of security. And again, just bringing in visibility that the feature exists and it's available to users is another important aspect that it is on this page with some of our other features that will be there, like suggested solution and monitoring response, and more recently having secret scans there. Another one that initial one that we took a look at will help with is in our license compliance section. And this is then surfacing that approval group is visible right here with this license check button, which would open the approval group. And either way, it would give status as to is license approvals, or is it active, is it not active? But this one was scheduled for 13.1, but actually the recommendation is that we do this UX debt issue to take care of vulnerability check and license check. Plus, it makes it easier for development for these other two follow-up issues, as it's just dropping it into these other pages. One thing that we'll have to address here as well, and we put a placeholder here and we'll create an issue, is that if we're displaying the rules, for example, in the configuration screen, like I mentioned earlier, or the approval area, and none of the scans are configured, we'll need to make sure that we communicate this to the user. So in this design, we actually see like we're giving them some status on the configuration page that these scans aren't updated. And then here, the status here is the scanner is not enabled. And we have this banner here that's clarifying, hey, vulnerability check requires one or more scanners to be enabled. So we're helping guide the user to actually know what the prerequisites and what's required for this check to be turned on. Okay, let me just go back. So those, I would say, these first 4 or 5 issues are really kind of the foundation at the project level to get started. And do you want to speak to some of the next ones, Camelia?
Yeah, and before we go to next one, I just want to add one thing, that the reason that why we want to do the general settings first and then move it to configuration and license check is we don't want to create this inconsistency that if we make it better in the license check our own security session, and then is not reflect the same thing, either go to the general setting and change it. So we need to make them work the same so user recognize they're the same thing and they're not different experiences. And for the one number 6 is to let user notice this after we get like is in the base, that in the configuration is ready, in the general session is ready, in the license is ready, we can tell user that, hey, there is a cool feature, do you want to go enable it? So this is just like bring the visibilities. And next one. So the number 7 is really like to separate from general rules. So for those user like want to always go to the settings to change things, to have an overview, to give them a better sense that those security are different. Like we want to separate them from these general rules. Now they're like in the one list, UX check, like if you have, I don't know, developer check or something like that, they're together with this license check and vulnerability check is not very easy. So we want to separate them into 2 small sessions under the approval rules. So it's more visible for user that, hey, those 2 are different things. And this is all the preparation for the next one, because there are overwritten rules that overrides this general thing. And this is the make it easier to enable and disable. And this can be done at all the places when we have the base ready. So it's just a toggle button to turn it on and off. Now you need to go to edit and change the approval required number to 0 and it's disabled. It's not very easy for user to understand the thing. And when we have the toggle button, we can also do it in our security configuration page to the lessons check page. So this is also like one feature to make it easier for user everywhere. So the next one is the to make it user understand like how much is required, and then how much is like 0. So when we have the toggle button, we should also like here when user change to 0 is immediately disable it, or like we can have a rule that's like you can not have 0. Like what do you mean by 0? That if I have 2 people required and then like their approval, I only have 1 people, and then like this math just doesn't work. It need to be the approval number need to be bigger than the number of required approvals, and it need to work with the privacy issue with the toggle button. So there are 2 things we need to fix it. I think this is not really like UX thing, it's more like a bug, because currently if you work it, it's working in a buggy way that user don't understand it. So the last one is to like finally make it to kind of complete, because if the security rule is still in the general session, you see a lot of overwritten rules below it, and it covers everything on the top. At least from the UIs, give the user the impression that each time you check on something for all the rules above has been done. So another thing we need to do is like move security session below this approval rules and to do a technical check, like all those overwritten rules won't apply to our security rules. So it will act exactly the same as like our own configuration session and lessons check session to make the separation easier. And this is another small improvement that's another, like the placeholder one Kyle was mentioning, when there's no security scan configured, those things are not enabled. It's just alert.
We could probably break this out and break this one out to another issue. I didn't realize this was here. So maybe we could do that as a follow-up for that placeholder.
Yeah, I think so. Let's do that, like break it and make it smaller steps.
Cool. Okay, so this section then, again, is just for those responsible, meaning that's the developer persona, the one who didn't set up the check, but who has to comply with it or may find themselves in a disallowed merge request. Yeah, do you want to talk about this one, Camelia?
Yeah, so if we click on the problem first, then we can see that's like there the session like a required approval from vulnerability check. It says it's already approved, but you can still not merge it. And then user don't understand, hey, why I can still not merge it? It says it's approved, but actually there are like 2 security checks they need to approve it and like other things. So the solution is that we really just separate it like into different approves and like expand it to also make the message more clear. It says the security needs rules are not approved, but the UX check is approved by Camellia. So the MR is blocked because of security rule. So those 2 copies need to match each other. And we also need to separate this approve button to each individual checks. So if I click bigger on the problem photo, So this is like a little bit more complex situation. Like the private situation is when there's MR is only blocked by security check. And now the MR is blocked by two things. Like one is this security check, another one is this merge request conflict. So user need to solve two things. And we're not at the like merge button, disabled button next to it, we only tell them one thing. So there might be like two personas of the user. One is solving conflicts, another one is solving security. And for the security guy, they come here and say, everything is good. I don't need to do anything, but actually they need, but we don't tell them. So the solution, if we go back to the solution screen, is to clearly tell people there are two things you need to do. So you need to solve the merge request conflict, and then another thing you need to like check the security approvals. And different people with different responsibility can come there and do their own thing. And the next one.
Well, I lost. Was it number 4 or was it? Oh, this one.
Number 4, I think. Number
okay.
4.
Cool.
So this one is really a bug. It's like on my settings, I have 3 approval rules. And when I create an MR, only one show up. And there's just why? It doesn't make sense. And user cannot edit it, change it or anything. We just need to move this session. Like the solution is very simple. Like user need to see all the security check when they create an MR, if they are created. And we go back. I think we didn't talk about 3. I saw 3, 5.
Oh, yeah. I'll come back to it. This one is just really quick. This one is just as changes are made when there's a security, when you're in a merge request, for example, vulnerability check, it just shows in the approval area, like Camelia was pointing out, there's no other indications that a problem has been made or anything. We've seen in user test 2, it's easy to overlook that approval section. So hence the earlier recommendations. This is an issue Lucas made a while ago after the implementation too, of just bringing these system notes here to the merge request, similar to how we have in the issue of when these things happen. And because there are some changes, for example, the critical vulnerability that was there could be removed, and then the approval required could also be removed. So it's just bringing visibility to what happened in the merge request and how it related to these rules in terms of a sort of audit log. And then I'll go back to 3 here.
Yeah, the 3 here was talking about the problem that there is only one approve button that approve everything. So like I need to approve them differently because like UX might be good, but security is not good. Not because I'm eligible for all of them. If I approve them, I approve all of them together. So this is also kind of a bug, like why they need to be approved like together.
And that being the case that you're the designated approver for both of them, like in this example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like we need to make it more clear that who like approved wage and who are eligible, and it make more sense that approve button is just on the right hand side, and if I'm not eligible for it, the approve button just need to be like only for me. If not, I can leave a message to let the people who responds for it to check it. And this is also improvement for the private solution. Private solutions still have all the approvals together with different buttons, but this one is really move them into different sections. For example, like the vulnerability check is with vulnerability, lessons check is with lessons. And we make it really just next to the session where user need to check the results, click on the approval. And I think this is a small improvement for the future, like cool MR improvements made by Andy. So those things are kind of preparation work for that. We hope we can solve them beforehand.
Cool. And that looks like it goes through these recommendations for this. Just the last thing we want to add is that we also have an epic for the introduction of vulnerability check at the group level. Something to consider here is for larger customers adopting this, surfacing it at a higher level, maybe the group or instance. It's the first step here is allowing users to see what projects are configured with vulnerability check. Otherwise, they'd have to go project to project to know where they even put the vulnerability check. So again, in the similar vein as showing it in the user interface, it could be a good way also to promote it. So you consider a group dashboard as just understanding how are my projects set up for security across multiple projects. Then maybe a second step could be applying the rule to multiple projects from the group level or instance, and then customizing the rule. This is also something that could be done at the project level, and customizing means like a sort of conditional rule. So the vulnerability check is a hard, fast rule for high, critical, and unknown. But what if I only want to disallow merge requests if critical vulnerabilities were found? And that would be the only rule, or different variations of that. And so that's what this is looking at. So given where we're at now, it would probably be really helpful to have feedback on, what's the general approach that we want to do? Do we want to invest in the project? Do we want to invest in the group